At night in the city of Osaka, Japan, two best friends, Nakai and Yamane, who were famous comedians in their time, are performing a show. But they are currently in a slump, and not a single audience member laughs at their performance. Even though they try to look funny, only one person in the audience laughs, and that is Azusa. After the show, they grow even more disappointed when they see the comedian performing, after them making the audience cheer. Nakai decides to quit being a comedian and accepts an offer to become a screenwriter, leaving Yamane, who has no other skills besides being a comedian. As he is about to go home, Yamane meets Azusa, who has been their loyal fan since the old days. Azusa likes and praises their performance, which makes Yamane feel strange, because she is the only one who liked it. After realizing that Azusa is his devoted fan, Yamane gives her the umbrella from their performance earlier as a farewell gift. The next day, Nakai, now working as a screenwriter, presents a new project titled Infiltrating the Mortetsu Ruins, where they film residences that were the site of strange deaths and broadcast them. However, the producer thinks the idea is very old-fashioned and outdated. To convince him, Nakai explains the incidents that happened in that residence. Nakai receives information from the last resident that the place is haunted.
Oi! Oi, orun ka?
The producer agrees and immediately assigns Yamane as the host of the new show, because his comedy act has already disbanded. Yamane is forced to accept it. The next day, Yamane goes to the apartment where a murder once occurred, and which is also an illegal building. Yamane enters and sees an empty room with a sharp, eerie atmosphere. Yamane begins recording the room, but something approaches. It is only the community board who has come to collect the dues. When Yamane opens the door, the woman's dog immediately runs inside and barks toward the window as if it is seeing something invisible. That night, Yamane immediately sets up his camera to record the room. After that, he plans to sleep, but the producer calls him to ask about Yamane's progress in the apartment. Yamane, who says he hasn't found anything yet, is accused of lying by the producer because he hears the sound of a woman laughing near Yamane. The next day, they check the footage and see a strange, creepy figure hovering around Yamane. The producer becomes convinced that Yamane claims all of this is real, and he quickly arranges for Yamane to appear on a talk show to discuss it. The talk show becomes a success and makes Yamane start gaining fame, while Nakai grows annoyed because he sees the producer taking all the credit from the director. After that, Yamane receives praise from the producer, who says that the second preview has been made. A short while later, Yamane, Nakai, and Azusa have a meal together at a restaurant. Azusa tells them that her dream is to become a famous makeup artist, while Yamane and Nakai want to become rich and popular. Then Nakai invites Azusa to join them at Yamane's haunted apartment because he wants to see the spirit with his own eyes. When they arrive in front of the apartment, the two of them leave Azusa, who senses something around the area. Not only that, while Azusa waits for Yamane to clean his room, she sees something. Terrified, Azusa decides to go home immediately, saying that she has to work early the next morning. Nakai tells Yamane that he has lost his job and now wants to work with Yamane again. Here, Yamane forgives him for leaving him in the past. Then Nakai places digital cameras all over the house, but days go by without capturing anything, which frustrates the producers. Azusa asks Yamane about the history of the house, and when she finds out that a woman was murdered there, Azusa admits that she can see spirits. Upon hearing that, Yamane asks Azusa for help because he has grown desperate after days of getting nothing. That night, they begin recording the room with Azusa as their guide. However, after some time, Azusa still hasn't found anything strange in the room. Yamane decides to take a break while making coffee for Azusa. As Azusa waits, something approaches. Terrified, Azusa tells Yamane that there is a woman in a red dress. Yamane immediately checks it. While alone, Azusa is approached by a creature in an all-black cloak that watches her from behind the window glass. The next day, Yamane and Nakai discover that their cameras mysteriously shut off during the night, so they no longer have any footage of what happened to Yumiko last night. A little later, when Yamane steps out, he notices that his bike has disappeared, and he assumes that Nakai took it. He calls Nakai, and Nakai says he didn't take it. Then Yamane sees the woman in the red dress standing right behind Nakai, and suddenly all the bikes around Yamane fall over by themselves. Then the woman in the red dress appears right next to Yamane. Yamane tells Nakai that there is a woman in a red dress behind him and asks him to point the camera at her. When comparing them, Yamane realizes that the woman in the red dress is the same figure standing in front of him, which means she isn't human because she is in two different places at the same time. Then something strange happens. The next day, Azusa visits the hospital and asks what really happened. Yamane explains that they too saw a woman in a red dress. Hearing that, Azusa's face immediately drops. She tells them that the woman they saw is the spirit of a murder victim. A month later, they are finally discharged from the hospital. The producer is thrilled because their trial episode has become enormously popular, so he makes them the lead actors of the entire talk show about problem houses. The two comedians are happy again. The next day, Yamane visits a local broker's office and asks for more problem houses for the next episode. There he meets a woman named Yokosui who specializes in haunted listings. She gives him 3 options, each one cursed and haunted. Yamane ends up choosing the property that was once the scene of a murder. Nakai and Yamane bring their belongings into the troubled apartment. As they enter, the same hooded black figure from before watches them. Yamane stops when he sees something on the floor. He approaches it and realizes it is a dried bloodstain. He immediately calls Nakai. They lift the mat and see that it really is dried blood. Nakai tells Yamane that the bathroom is also strange. He shows the spot where the mirror should be, but the mirror is gone. Yamane also notices a bloodstain on a crack in the bathroom tile, and the shower hose has been newly replaced. Then Nakai shows the clogged sink. Yamane grabs a pair of chopsticks and discovers that what is blocking it is white hair, suggesting that the place was never cleaned after the murder. The next day, a creepy, incomprehensible voicemail message is sent to Nakai's phone from Yamane's phone, even though Yamane doesn't remember sending it. Yamane becomes increasingly popular and holds a fan meeting. Azusa, who is there, greets him from afar, but she notices a strand of white hair floating on Yamane's shoulder. A fan asks Yamane for a photo together, and Yamane asks Azusa to take the picture. As Azusa is about to take the photo, the camera detects something moving around Yamane. Then suddenly, when Yamane checks it himself with the front camera, he realizes the camera really detects something, yet Yamane looks pleased. The next day, Yamane visits Azusa and invites her to the new apartment they rented. Once at the apartment, Yamane starts recording Azusa as she examines the bloodstain on the mat. However, something happens while they are inspecting the bathroom.
Yeah, boy.
At that moment, Yamane receives a phone call and rushes out of the bathroom, leaving Azusa alone. While alone, Azusa hears something and begins to investigate. Hearing a sound from the bathroom, Yamane rushes over immediately. He sees Azusa with her face submerged in the sink and quickly helps her. At the sink, they notice white hair, like what Yamane and Nakai had seen before. After this incident, they realize what happened in the apartment, where a child had tortured his elderly mother. He drags her to the bathroom. The child slammed the mother against the wall until the bathroom tiles cracked, then struck her against the mirror. After that, the child pressed the mother's face into the sink. Then Yamane and Azusa listened to the strange voicemail that had previously been sent to Nakai. After listening carefully, they are shocked to learn that before being killed, the mother expressed regret for adopting the child. After understanding the true events, Yamane begins packing his things. Meanwhile, Azusa senses that something is still there. Sometime later, Yamane drives Azusa home. On the way, he apologizes for putting her in danger and promises not to bother her again. That night, Yamane sees Nakai packing and planning to return to his hometown. He explains that there was a fire, and his father was burned all over his body. Meanwhile, his mother falls ill and making Nakai feel that this is not a coincidence. Nakai advises Yamane to stop filming haunted places because it could endanger people around him, like Azusa. However, Yamane refuses because he has already become popular. A few days later, Yamane searches for another problematic apartment. Yokosui offers several options of haunted and cursed apartments. Yamane chooses a rooftop where a suicide had occurred. Sometime later, Yamane arrives at the apartment. As he enters, he senses something at the apartment's entrance.
What?
After that, he checks the bedroom and tries lying down, when suddenly the figure in the black cloak appears watching him. Sensing he is being observed, Yamane notices one of the staircase rails bent with a black rope tied to it. Suddenly, Yamane feels a severe headache. The producer calls him and tells him to rest, while Azusa hears something nearby. Worried, Azusa immediately heads to Yamane's apartment. Meanwhile, inside the apartment, Yamane begins acting strangely. He removes the black rope and wraps it around his neck as if preparing to hang himself. Fortunately, Azusa rings the doorbell, causing Yamane to stop. When Yamane steps outside, Azusa is shocked to see the rope around his neck and asks what it's for. Yamane snaps out of it and immediately removes the rope, not even remembering that he tied it himself. After that, they look into the apartment's history and find that someone had hanged themselves there, and then they sense something on the staircase. The next day, the producer tells Yamane to go to Tokyo for the next haunted property. He also adds that their show will be broadcast nationally because of its rising popularity. That night, Yamane immediately looks for Yokosui to ask about haunted apartments in Tokyo. Yokosui offers several haunted apartment options. However, Yamane feels that the prices for Tokyo apartments are too expensive. Realizing this, Yokosui pulls out a blueprint of an apartment said to be the most haunted and dangerous, offered at a very low price. The next morning, Yamane meets Azusa, who forbids him from going after learning about it. But Yamane insists on continuing the show even though Azusa begs him to stop. Yamane is still carried away by his popularity, with viewers waiting for his stories. Azusa continues asking him to stop and return to being a comedian who makes people laugh. However, Yamane becomes irritated and says this is none of her business and that Azusa is neither his family nor his girlfriend. Azusa feels disappointed, apologizes, and walks away. A few days later, Yamane arrived in Tokyo and met a man. He handed Yamane a business card, revealing that he was Miyagi from the Great Gore Shrine. He said that several terrifying entities were following Yamane and told him to get rid of them immediately before it was too late. Then Miyagi told Yamane to choose one of the charms hanging on his clothes. Yamane took one charm, and of course Miyagi immediately asked him to pay for it. Sometime later, Yamane arrived at the apartment he was heading to. The room inside was silent, dim, and unsettling. As Yamane walked further inside, he suddenly collapsed and lost consciousness. Later that night, Yamane woke up after hearing his doorbell ring. He looked through the peephole, but no one was outside. Only the security sensor lit up, showing that something had just moved. Yamane stepped outside thinking someone was pranking him, but there was absolutely no one there. As he returned and closed his door, the door of the room next to his suddenly opened by itself. Terrified, Yamane peeked inside, but all he saw was darkness. He quickly shut the door in a panic. The next day, he went to his talk show and told the audience everything about the terrifying experience he had the night before. Meanwhile, Azusa met Nakai, who said he had resigned and was returning to his hometown. He asked Azusa to stop contacting Yamane for her own safety. Back in the haunted apartment, Yamane filmed himself as usual. The doorbell rang again, and Yamane showed that no one was outside. Only the anti-theft sensor was triggered. Azusa was watching from home through the online stream. Suddenly, she was shocked to see Yamane's face turning black, and even the live comments were filled with people noticing the same thing. Realizing that Yamane was cursed, Azusa decided to go visit him immediately. The next night, the lights in Yamane's room suddenly went out and couldn't be turned back on. In the darkness, Yamane stumbled over something. He found himself surrounded by the ghosts of people who had died in that place. Luckily, the charm he bought was able to drive those spirits away. But it didn't end there. Something else emerged from the darkness. This creature was the strongest entity, the source of all the curses from the haunted places Yamane had stayed in. Azusa banged on the door, knowing that Yamane was in grave danger. Hearing Yamane's scream, Azusa broke the window and climbed inside. There, She finally found Yamane trembling in fear. The black-robed entity immediately launched its attack on them. Yamane and Azusa lost control of their bodies and began attacking each other, just like the murder that once happened in that cursed apartment. In the critical moment, Nakai arrived to save them. Nakai splashed holy water at the entity, but it had no effect at all. He then tried using a charm, but the creature easily knocked him away. Desperate, Nakai called Yokosui, who told him to use incense to defeat the entity. The creature's influence over Yamane and Azusa finally broke, enraging the entity, which then turned its attack toward Nakai. Nakai tried using the incense again, but the creature reflected the burning incense back at them. Fortunately, the umbrella Yamane had given them was able to block the fiery attack. In the end, they managed to escape the cursed apartment safely. Yamane has learned his lesson, and he vows never to enter a haunted house again. The next day, Yamane and Azusa visit Yokohui, and she finds a normal house for him. But suddenly, the demon returns and possesses Yokohui's body. Completely overtaken, Yokohui walks into the street and is hit by a truck, dying instantly. Yamane and Azusa are horrified, but the demon achieved exactly what it wanted, and that is the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support more horror content.